she got my back.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you how to cut a conical underbust corset blouse. So if this is something you like, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and let's dive right into today's video. So I've gone ahead to mark out my basic measurements for this particular pattern, which is my shoulder to bust, my shoulder to underbust, my shoulder to waist, and for my top length I used 5 inches away from my waistline. So after I'm done labeling this out, the next is to mark my shoulder, and my shoulder is 14 inches divided by 2. I have 7. I'll be adding half inch because this dress has a sleeve. So after marking that 7.5 inches, I'll be going down by 1 inch, and I'll go ahead to mark a basic neckline of 3 by 3 inches. So after I'm done drawing out my neckline, that 1 inch shoulder slant that I went down with at my shoulder point, I'm going to connect it to the neckline of my pattern. So after I'm done doing that, the next is to find my chest line, and to get your chest line is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. So I'll go ahead and mark, but before I mark, I'll make sure that what I have on my shoulder, that's 7.5, I'll mark it at the lower part. Now I'm going to go ahead and place my ruler and I'll mark. After I'm done marking my chest line, which is 7 inches, I'm going to mark the distance from my chest line to my bust point. What I have is 1 inch. Yours might be 1 inch or more. So I'll go ahead and connect, drawing a straight line at that point. So after I'm done doing that, I'm going to divide my armhole into 2, fold my tape up this way, and after marking that, I'll come in by half inch. So at the lower part of my chest line, I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4, and I will connect from my bust circumference divided by 4 to the half inch at the armhole, and also connect it to the shoulder point. So next, I'll be marking my nipple to nipple divided by 2, or my bust span divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5. So I'll go ahead and I will mark that. So I'll mark that to the lower part of my pattern, and I'm just going to connect, drawing a straight line. So for this pattern, I'll be using a slanted dart. But before marking that, I'll just mark a basic dart intake of half inch on my waistline and draw it out. This will help me serve as a guide when I'm drawing this out. So after ruling that, after that, I'll be marking my dart intake at the underbust, which I'll be marking 1 inch at both sides of my underbust. So for a plus size, you can use 1.5 inches. After that, I'll connect from my bust down to my underbust this way. And I'll also go ahead to repeat this for the other side of my pattern. So at the lower part, I'll mark 1.5 inches. You can also use 2 inches if you so desire. From that, my underbust, I'm going to connect it down to the 1.5 inches I marked at the lower part. So as you can see, I have a slanted dart. So from there, I'll mark my normal 2 inches dart. You know, when I'm drafting my pattern, I mark 1 inch on both sides. So I'll be marking my normal 2 inches dart. So if yours is 1.5 on both sides, meaning 3 inches, you'll be marking 3 inches at this point, and you go ahead to connect. So next, at the armhole or chest line of my pattern, I will be dividing it into 2, just like when you're marking out your chest line. So I'll go ahead, divide it into 2 and come in by half. So from there, I'll connect it down to my bust point. You're going to go ahead to connect it down to your bust point this way. So if you are just cutting out a princess dart, you can just connect and leave it, and just go ahead to extend it by 1 inch by this side. But we are making this a bustier, so I'll come down by half inch and I'll go up by half inch. After connecting that, after marking that, I'll go ahead to connect it. So after cutting out, you're going to measure that half inch on both sides, which is half inch plus half inch. You'll be having about 1 inch. Now you'll be extending it out this way. This is so that by the time you join the lower part to the upper part, it's going to meet. Now I'll just go ahead and reconnect to my armhole part, and I'll use my marker to mark this out to make it more visible for you to see. So next, I'm just going to go ahead to place my tape, and I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake mark, and I'll be adding my sewing allowance. At the underbust, I'm going to mark my underbust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace, and add my sewing allowance. At the waistline, I'm going to mark my original waistline divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace, and add my sewing allowance also to it together. So at the top length, I'll mark my hip circumference divided by 4, measure the 2 inches, replace, and next I'll be adding like a conical effect to this. So I'll be using 2 inches for this, and go ahead and add your sewing allowance. So while I'm using 2 inches is because the conical effect is not so pronounced, and while you're cutting out this pattern, do not bother that the distance is a bit far. By the time you close up your dart, is going to go ahead to match up. So now connect from your bust down to your underbust to your waist, and from my waistline I'm going to place my curve through this way, and I will extend it down to the top length. So after I'm done marking this out, I'll place my tape at my underbust, and I'll go up by 1 inch, connect it all the way down. So at this point I'll go up by 0.75, and I'll go ahead to connect. So you can use a bust dart for this particular pattern if you want to, but to make it beginner friendly, I'm just going to leave it this way. So after I'm done cutting that, or marking that rather, I'm going to go ahead and reconnect the neckline this way. So you notice that you have like a slight sweetheart neck on top, and I'm going to redraw my neckline looking this way. So after I'm done connecting and drawing that part out, I'm going to outline the rest of my pattern, and after I'm done outlining that, we're going to go ahead to create another dart on this pattern. So we're trying to snatch our waistline. So my waistline is 28, and I want to reduce this to 24. So what I'll do is 28 minus 24, I have 4 inches left. So that 4 inches, I'll go ahead to divide it by 4, because we have 4 parts on this, and I'll have 1 inch. So that 1 inch, I'll be sharing half inch on both sides. So by the time I mark 1 inch on the right side of the front pattern, on the left side of the front pattern, and also repeat it at the back, you notice we have 1 inch at both sides. So with that, we have successfully snatched out 4 inches from our waistline. That is 1 inch on the front waistline at the right, 1 inch on the front waistline of the left, 1 inch at the waistline at the back pattern at the left, and also 1 inch at the right back pattern. So with that, you have 4 inches. And now I'm going to blend my dart, and I'll place my tape, go up by 2 inches, and I'm going to connect. So from this point, I'm just going to go ahead to connect up to that point, and I'll connect to the lower part. So while connecting to the lower part of the other side, I'll come up a bit by half inch, and I will connect to the rest of the pattern. So I'll go ahead and I will label my pattern 1, 2, and 3, or you can label as center C, side 1, and side 2. So at this point, if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and also leave your comment at the comment section. So after I'm done cutting out, this is what I have, and we'll head over to the back pattern. So I've gone ahead to mark out all the basic measurements just like we did at the front part. So I'll go ahead and I'll mark my neckline of 3 inches by 1.5 inches, and I'll just go ahead to draw it out. So after I'm done drawing that out, I'll go ahead and I'll mark my bust pan or nipple to nipple divided by 2. So I'm going to be marking this from the upper part of my pattern to the lower part, or to the top length of my pattern. So after marking that out, I'm just going to go ahead to rule a straight line connecting this. So I'll mark 1/2 inch on both sides of my waistline, come down by 1 inch from my bust point, and I'm going to connect. So sorry my video is not that clear. When I was actually recording, I didn't notice this. So I went ahead to connect from the waistline down to the lower part of the pattern. Now at the bust point, I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4, and I'll add the sewing allowance because there's no dart. At the underbust, you can just go ahead to leave it and mark your waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace, and add the sewing allowance. So for the top length, you're going to mark your hip circumference divided by 4, add the same 2 inches for conical effect, and add 1/2 inch for sewing allowance. But you can use more than 1/2 inch for this, but it's better and easier to work with 1/2 inch when you're sewing this to join it together. So I'll come down by 1/2 inch and connect it to the chest line. Go ahead to mark 1.5 inches for the lacing bar area. This 1.5 inches is not a standard. You can just go ahead and use 2 inches or whatever you prefer. So after marking this out, I'm just going to make a mark to indicate that that point is my lacing bar area, and I'll just outline some part of my pattern this way so that my pattern will be visible for you to see. So just like we marked extra dart for the front pattern to snatch our waist, I'm going to mark a straight line, and I'll be marking 1/2 inch dart on both sides of this pattern, meaning I'm taking out 1 inch on this part. Do the same also at the right part, which is we'll be having 4 inches dart intake, that is taking out 4 inches from our waistline. So at the upper part, I will come down by 1.5 inches and I will connect. So for the back pattern, I'm just marking this out with my own idea. You can go ahead to make your back pattern different from what I have. So after I'm done marking this out, I'm just going to go ahead to connect. So I'll go up by 1/2 inch at this point and extend it. This is just to make sure that I'm tightening my yoke at this point. So I'll just shade it out, and after this I'll be drawing out the lower waistline. I'll come up by 2 inches just like we did at the front, and I'll just go ahead to connect, and at this point I'll go up by 1/2 inch and connect. So after this, I'll just go ahead to cut out my pattern. So with this, we have come to the end of today's tutorial. If you find this very interesting and indicative, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and also leave your comments at the comment section. So after I was done cutting, this is what I have for the back pattern.